Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. In my last few videos, we've been talking about why I was expecting to see a sell-off, and that was exactly what the market did. Now that we've seen this sell-off and we've gone back down to the target that I was watching for right around 25,000, does this mean that this correction is over and we're going to be starting that next leg up in our cycle? Or is this ultimately just going to end up being a dead cat bounce before one more final low? It's been a little while since my last update. I've been sick, but I got a lot of really important things, so make sure you guys stay all the way to the end so you don't miss out on any of this exciting information. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and with that being said, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, so here we are to start off today's video. My voice is finally back. I've literally been dying to make these updates for you guys because there's been so many important things happening inside of the market. Now right off the bat guys, what we've been talking a lot about since we were at the range highs was why I believe that we were going to see a sell-off. And ultimately that's exactly what ended up playing out. Bitcoin ended up selling off. We came all the way back down to these range lows. In fact, we went lower. We flushed slightly below them, and we had this big wick that took us pretty much back down to that 25K level right here. We didn't come all the way back down to tag that, but it was close enough, and that was pretty much what I've been watching for since the range highs. For me, it was really going to be two scenarios. We were either going to see this market end up holding bullish support at this 25K range before going back up again, or we were going to ultimately see this end up making some type of big corrective pattern before getting one big sell-off that took us, fairly close back down to about the low end that we saw over here at about 20K, but not so far as 20K. I'd say more around 21,500. So that's kind of what I talked about in my last video. But now the question comes, is this the beginning of a new bullish cycle with this sort of capitulation and the retest of 25K, or is this still some type of lengthier consolidation before a bigger drop is coming? Now, I don't know exactly right now, but what I'll tell you guys right off the bat is what I've been watching for was 25K. So now that we've basically hit 25K, I think that the next scenario is simply just to play the bullish direction. What I think is the most likely scenario is potentially a move back up to these range highs. It's hard to say if we'll get all the way back up there, but I think that that's the next scenario here. It's not really that far off from where we're at. Even if this ends up pulling back here, we could see a pullback. We could kind of come back down and fully cement whether this is going to hold as support before making that next leg up. But regardless of the short-term direction the market takes, I think that the next likely scenario is for us to be targeting the range highs. Because in the same way that we needed to hold support above here for us to get that next leg up, we need to actually get back above this range high and hold it as support if we're going to end up seeing this actually be a new cycle. So that's kind of the direction that I'm seeing for the market with Bitcoin. And really a lot of this is going to be decided around what happens with the SPX. Now the S&P 500 has this descending resistance, and we've been at this resistance for basically a month now, maybe even longer at this point. And we're at a point where we're either going to see this thing break down or we're going to see the next leg up in the cycle. And it's at an interesting point where if this does end up holding support like we have up to this point, we could very easily see this thing set in for that next leg up, which in my opinion is going to be taking us up to about 4,300. And it would put in one more impulse like this. And so I think that that would ultimately give Bitcoin the momentum it would need for, maybe we make a breakout. But in the short term, it's kind of hard to say. This is a pretty decent size of an impulse for the S&P 500. So if the S&P 500 was to finally break out, considering the fact it's been consolidating here since, mid-April, we've been here for a month now. If we were to finally clear out of that and impulse upwards, I think that that ultimately resolves this entire consolidation for Bitcoin to the upside as well. And that would be, pretty much where we would see some type of a blow off top, kind of like what I've talked to you guys about for a little while. Those are really the only two scenarios that I see fit for Bitcoin. There's either going to be the scenario where this finishes for one more final blow off top, or what I would believe is some type of ABC correction, right? ABC correction like that. Those are the scenarios that I see fit. And the reason why I'm still considering the fact that we could see this end up being some type of a ABC is because we do have a very clear impulse off of the lows. But the question comes, was this the completion of wave 5, or are we still going to get one more final impulse before it's done? And that's kind of the issue with Elliott waves, and the reason why I don't choose to focus solely on Elliott waves is because when it comes to impulses, we can have sub-impulse waves and they can kind of mix together, and it's a little bit tricky to pinpoint exactly where we're at. And so when we're moving forward, this is the scenario that I see. We've really either finished wave 5 or we're going to be starting and completing the finality of this wave 5 impulse. Now, a lot of that is going to be riding around the SPX. If the SPX rejects here, breaks down from this resistance and makes a lower low to 3,900, then at that point, we're going to expect to see Bitcoin break down from this consolidation as well. But it's really going to be riding around what happens with these two markets. And one final one is actually going to be the DXY. The DXY is looking like this is a bullish retest, right? So notice how we've had this big move off of the lows, and we talked a lot about this in my other videos, how we've been consolidating in here, creating some type of a bottom formation. And so now that we've seen this breakout, this sell-off is a retest of prior resistance as new support. So we would expect to see this bounce and make one more leg up before this is over. And in the short term, I believe that the DXY is headed to about 103.5, basically 103.355. That's where I think that the DXY is headed in the short term. And then from there, in the long term, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Bitcoin because, you know, like I've stated, guys, there's only two scenarios here. We're either going to see a bigger correction back down to about $21,500, or we're going to see one more final impulse back to the upside. And that's kind of what I'm going to be watching for with Bitcoin. So with that in mind, you know, the DXY is only going to have a couple scenarios too. And what I talked about in my last video was how this looks like we could be building some type of a double bottom formation. And I still definitely think that that is possible. And so if the potential where Bitcoin actually ends up making a bigger correction plays out, how do we play that and what would the dollar look like? Well, most likely the dollar would end up bouncing, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the dollar make one final impulse, break the range highs at 105 and 106, and actually come all the way back up here to about 108 and 109. And I don't think that this would restart a new cycle. In my opinion, this would just be an ABC correction before this ultimately started that next decline back down. And that would probably take us sometime around mid-2024 into 2025 when we would expect to see the bulk of our bull run take place. And so if we end up seeing a bigger correction for Bitcoin, a longer period of correction, where Bitcoin does end up topping up here, we end up making this big decline to the downside, going through, you know, maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months of correction, it would end up being somewhat similar to what we saw in the last cycle. And I'm not saying that it would look exactly the same, but the length of time that we spent correcting throughout this entirety, all the way leading to the point of us actually breaking out, this was a long period of time. And that's the way that we can expect to see markets play out. I mean, we don't have to see it play out in the exact same way just because last year did it, but we can expect anything at this point because we have seen anything. We don't know how this market cycle is going to accumulate. And the way that it accumulates for me is really residing around one more final blow off top or one more deeper correction to the downside. And so for me, guys, and the way that I always coach you guys to play the market, if you're not a trader and you don't plan to be a trader, or if you don't know how to trade, and even if you're wanting to learn to trade, put the biggest majority of your focus on the long term. Don't try and play the swings. Because if we're sitting here and if you've been playing the market like I have, for me, the entire time I've been accumulating has really revolved around this point right here. And then when we got this sell-off, we bought a whole bunch more at the 618. And so that was really where I did the majority of my accumulation, was this entire move over here. And so now that we're at this point where the market has started to break out, I'm not trying to trade the swing highs and swing lows. The market is going to do that regardless. I'm not trying to play that. What I have already done is position myself in positions for the long term that I thought were going to play out well. And so that's what I'm focused in on. If this ends up making a longer consolidation, we end up consolidating throughout the majority of this year into 2024 even, you know, I don't really care because I feel confident in what I've already accumulated because that is what I spent the entirety of down here doing. So if the market ends up breaking out, you guys got to understand that I'm more or less looking to hold 2-3 years from now. I'm looking to hold into 2025, the end of 2025 for taking profits. And so for anybody that's trying to understand what to do, I always tell you guys, just focus on the long term because that's the most consistent thing that we can ever do to make profit. We're going to cost ourselves a lot of money trying to trade in and out of all of the swings. For me, I felt confident that we were going to see this dip right here. and I felt confident we were going to retest the 618. So for me, I took profits in here and bought that dip. But you're not going to really see me do that too much, considering the fact I'm much more long-term orientated. And so that's kind of the focus that I'm at right now. I wanted to give you guys this analysis and this update and these tips, because so many people end up costing themselves the majority of their long-term position at the beginning of the cycle before they've even had the chance to hold it. And so the best thing that we can always do is look to have patience, look to hold, and be willing to hold through the ups and the downs, because regardless of the ups and the downs, we know that given a full bull run, we know how high Bitcoin goes. If Bitcoin were to go into new all-time highs, we have another new cycle. Even if Bitcoin only goes to 100K, right? I still think that there will be enough profit to be made inside of a move like that you will still have the opportunity for life-changing wealth. But I think that if Bitcoin goes to, say, 150 to maybe 200,000, the upside potential just gets that much greater. And so the worst thing in the absolute world that you can do is try and overtrade, try and get too ahead of yourselves because you're have PTSD from the bear market, cost yourself your position before we've even gotten close to the all-time highs. And then once the market cycle gets into new all-time highs, you know, you're going to be looking back at your portfolio, you're going to be doing your taxes, you're going to be doing this and this, and you're going to be thinking, man, I should have held that, I should have just sat in that, I shouldn't have worried too much about it, because that was the mistakes that I've made. Those are the mistakes I've seen many other people make, and this is now my third bull run, 7th year in crypto. I'm really, really maturing into the markets and trying my absolute hardest to be able to teach that knowledge back to you guys. And these are the things that I see playing out. So I want to give you guys this update. I think that the very real potential of Bitcoin starting a short-term cycle is here. I think that Bitcoin in the short term could make a run back up to these range highs, but in the same way that we've been playing the market up to this point, guys, if as long as we're below this resistance of 29,000, then we're going to continue to play for downside. If we can end up making some type of a move, holding support above that, I think that that really is where we're going to get confirmation that the new cycle started, and we could look at one more final impulse. A lot of this is going to be riding around the S&P 500. If this breaks out, I expect that Bitcoin will most likely break out of this consolidation as well. Now, with the DXY, understand that if this ends up making a bigger move to the upside, where we end up seeing this go all the way to 109, that's the scenario where I would end up seeing Bitcoin topping from this and making a longer term consolidation. Something would play out like that for the S&P 500. I don't know exactly how the direction of that would take. But if we don't end up seeing, you know, Bitcoin correct and make some type of long-term consolidation, this thing might take a longer period before we get to that point. This might bounce, might come back down, go through a long period of consolidation, and we might end up seeing Bitcoin make a final blow off top and then still seeing the DXY make this big move up, but it just might take a longer period of time. We can see these early signs starting to form, like how when I look at the DXY, this to me looks like a potential bottom is forming. And when I look at Bitcoin, it looks like a potential top is forming. But we could still see one final blow off top here in Bitcoin, and we could still see a lengthier period of consolidation in the DXY before we still see this type of a move, and we still see a lengthy period of reconsolidation for Bitcoin. And that's why I tell you guys that the best thing that we can do is not try and trade in and out of every swing high and swing low or try and predict the market, but have your sights set on the long term. And that's the way that I'm playing the market. That's the way that I wanted to give you guys this update. So if you guys found value in this, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you found value in any sort of way and you guys want to be able to learn more of what I do, you guys want to be able to follow the trades that I take, see all of my analysis that I ever post before I talk about it on YouTube, links are in the description to go ahead and sign up on my website. You guys can also check out my free ebook if you're just a beginner and want to learn more of some of the basics of trading and investing in crypto. I've gone ahead and made you guys a free ebook, and that's downloadable inside of the description of this video. So check it out. Links are in the description. Thank you all so much for the support. It's been so long since I've been able to record, since my voice has been out, and believe me, I felt alright, but I just haven't been able to physically speak, and it's been hurting my voice and my throat. So now I'm able to actually do that. I've been really excited to share with you guys this update because there's been a lot going on in the markets. And now that we've kind of had what I was initially watching for, this is the way that I see the market playing out from here. So I'll give you guys these updates. Expect frequent content throughout the rest of this week. Thank you all so much for the people that reached out and asked me how I was doing. I love and appreciate each and every one of you guys that watch this channel. It means the world to me. whether you comment, whether you like, whether you subscribe, or whether you just tune in from wherever it is. I appreciate you guys, and I look so forward to seeing what you guys are able to actually do over the course of a full bull run. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.